Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Wordsmith's Forge with your humble host, Matthew J. Coran. I got an interesting one for you today. I was thinking about, a lot of the different character structures that go into a story, and the one that I feel is most pertinent today, that it's one that I baked into my book. It's kind of central to it, and I didn't realize it until after I already wrote it, but it's the concept of initiation. It's the young man who's, well, rather the young boy who's looking to become a man. And we see that with our protagonist Sim here. And I didn't realize how archetypal it was until really digging into these things, because one of the common struggles of a young man today, especially in the Western world, is learning how to actually be a man, which is not easy. St. Thomas talks about manliness and what effeminacy is. I know I've said this before, but for those of you who haven't heard it, effeminacy, St. Thomas describes, is the unwillingness to set aside pleasure to do what is difficult, right? And that's one of the key elements in what makes someone masculine, right? Because ever since the fall, the curse of Adam has been to toil in the fields for the rest of his days, and the temptation in Adam, in man, is to not do that, right? To do the easy thing, right? Choose comfort instead of work, right? Because all the fruitful things in this life that we can get are received through work, through hard work, right? It takes effort to build a company. It takes effort to write a book. It takes effort to build a house, right? None of these things are easy, right? They require a certain amount of discomfort. And so our desire for comfort comes from being our origin, our human origin, which is in the womb, right? We're protected, we're kept safe from the outside world, we're literally just fed and comforted, nice and warm all the time. And then we get born into the outside world, and suddenly everything is new, everything is terrifying. And all you can do is cry, right? This is the birth of my son. I got to witness it as an adult. This little baby coming into the outside world, and all of a sudden everything changes, right? And so as as we get older as boys, we crave that comfort that we once had, and you know, it's something that we gradually kind of need to grow out of, because like as a young boy, as a baby, like, as a toddler, your your mother is constantly comforting you, giving you that safe space that you don't physically have anymore. Uh, being nurturing. But as a young man gets older, he needs to learn to step away from that and become a man. A man is someone who uh, becomes very intimate with danger, right? He's constantly taking risks, going out into the unknown, adventuring, right? And that's the crux of the hero's journey. You go into the unknown, you step into the unknown, you leave the safety, the womb of your hometown or whatever sense of familiarity you have, and you step into something that's unfamiliar, and you grow in that, right? Because even the term growing, it implies that you're expanding beyond where you already are, right? If you stay in the same place, if you're stagnant and you're walled up in a womb, you can't grow. You're limited by your walls. Attachment to pleasure works the same way. because really what that is, it's you craving that original comfort. And so, long-winded introduction, but we see that with Sim, where he starts out, he instinctively wants to get closer to his father, right? And he does the things that his father wants. This is something that we all have, where we all want to get close to our father. But the world comes in and gets between us and our father, whether it's literally our father's taken away from us, whether he leaves or goes before his time, or his work takes him away. Our father can become distant to us, and so we feel that void that we want our father to fill, right? Where we can learn from him and follow in his footsteps. And we see that with Sim. His father was taken away from him when he was a young boy, and he never truly learned how to be a man. He's only remembered what his father taught him and tried to live it out as best he could, right? He's working hard, toiling in the fields, doing all these things, but he never really grows up. He's still very attached to his mother, and his mother represents the womb, the nurturing, comfort side of life, right? We see that with Sim talking to the Breezers. Houston tries to convince him to join them, like all the things he could learn, the adventures he could have, the ways he could grow. He relates it to Sim's garden very cleverly. And, Sim's just not about that. He wants to just stay where he's at with his mother. He says it's to take care of her, but there's more to it than that, right? He doesn't want to let go of that familiarity, because he never got to learn from his father how to let go of all that, right? Because he was too young. He was 9 years old. He was 9 years old when his father was taken from him, and at that point, you wouldn't teach a young boy to completely detach from everything. He's still in those, not technically in the formative years, but still in those years where he's being formed as a young man. He's not quite at the detachment level yet, right? And so when he gets to that level and he doesn't have his father to guide him through it, this is where the dilemma is in a lot of young men, because they either do it in an unhealthy way, or they don't do it at all, right? Think of all of the young men who don't have fathers who get involved in violent crime. And there's a reason for it. It's not just because they're bad. It's because they lacked that direction and how to properly channel their energy as a man into something that's productive. They were never taught the proper way to be. They were never taught how to be. And so they look for that direction elsewhere. And there's a lot of bad teachers out there, a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing, who will happily take these confused young men into their fold and mold them, because they're very moldable at this stage, mold them into something that suits their purposes, which can be very detrimental to both the identity of the young man and to the world around him, right? Just with how much gang violence, drug-related violence, children out of wedlock, all of these things, it all starts with the father guiding the son to properly channel his energy. And so there's the aspect of it where the son doesn't learn how to direct it in the right way, and so he lets it just run wild, right? Just does whatever he wants, no concern for consequences, things like that. And then there's the other extreme where the young boy never even makes the effort to grow into a man, and he chooses to stay in his comforts. and live and grow up in them, which isn't growing up at all, right? And think of how many men you've seen who are literally like man-childs, man babies, who, they're in their 30s and they're constantly playing on their Nintendo Switch and, doing fantasy football, doing all these things. Like, they just live to be entertained, and they're not really that productive. Like, they'll work, they'll do the bare minimum they need to maintain their lifestyle, but, like, they live for their comforts. That's what they find solace in, and that's all they really care about, right? And so that's the end product of a young man who was never directed by his father to have a mission, to die to his old self so he can be born again as a man, right? It's very Christian language, because that's what we do as Christians. When we're baptized, we die to our old selves and we're born again through water and spirit as children of God, as little Christs, literally what Christian means. And so the concept of initiation is very important today to bring to awareness, because this is what young men are craving even though they don't realize it. It's the process by which you stop being a boy and you start being a man, right? And so this is drawn out in the life of Sim in book 1. We see that this really is the beginning of his initiation, and it starts with the death of his old life. For those of you who haven't read book 1 and don't want me to spoil it, maybe skip 5 minutes ahead, or just stop listening and buy my book. Anyway, his entire old life collapses, right? And it starts with searching for his father. But in order to search outward for his father, representing the man he wants to be, what must happen is a death to his old life. So you see, when he first starts making moves towards getting closer to his father, by taking in Munin as a dying fugitive and inviting danger into his home, we see the cascade of events that happens after that. He learns more about himself. He finds connections to his father. He learns new powers in himself, things in him that he never knew were there, at the cost of his mother dying, his village banishing him, and having to join the Breezers and to travel with them, basically just decimating his life as a farmer and starting a whole new life. And that is really the beginning of his initiation. It's not the end of it, right? I have 9 more books on deck, but that is the beginning of his initiation. It's the death to his old life, and now he's going to step into his new life and learn more about what's really in himself, what it means to be a man, how to properly deal with his emotions. Because as a boy, we don't really know how to deal with them. We throw temper tantrums, as boys. We get huffy when things don't go our way. We're not always the best with discipline, especially if you don't have a father there to instill discipline. And so, learning how to channel your emotions in a healthy way, where you're not like constantly dealing with negativity and guilt and all the rest. And not just learning how to deal with the negative, but then to be positive, to take your newfound gifts and use them to push out into the world and to literally stretch out and grow, right? Like, for those of you who've heard of Jordan Peterson, he talks about the lobsters. It's a true thing where, like, literally the more dominant a lobster is, the more like he expands out, he takes up space. It's the masculine positive energy pushing out. That's what men do. They push out. They're very they're very what's the word? Explorative, adventurous, right? They're going out into new territory. They're pushing boundaries, not necessarily in a disrespectful way, but like they want to expand, right? Think masculine, expand. Feminine is more of inward, pull in, right? That's what the effeminate man does. He pulls inward into himself and hides in his comforts, right? He shrinks in. But the initiated masculine man, he pushes out into the world. And so that's where Sim's journey is going to take him next. And if you're curious about that and you want to learn more, if you followed book one, or if you're interested in book one, read it, and then follow my alpha reader posts. I've started book two, and there are now posts out available for the public. You can read it and interact with me in real time. You can comment all over the posts, and you can help me form book two into the next step in the masculine initiation for Sim that it needs to be. And you can find my alpha reader posts on Medium, and you can give me a follow, Matthew J. Karan on Medium. You'll see all my posts there. Join my newsletter on my website. I'll put the link down below, and you'll be up to date on when I post. You can also follow me on Medium. You can get up to date on all my posts. On the newsletter, you get other benefits. You get insider, behind the scenes looks at how I structure the world. You get first access to some of my new projects, and first glimpse into some things I have in the works. I consult my newsletter before the public on things like that. And we are working on merch as well. So being a member of the newsletter, you get first dibs on any new merch that comes out. You get exclusive deals, things like that. So we really like to sweeten the deal for you to help stay in the loop and help me co-create this story, which is a story both as old as time and one that constantly needs to be retold, right? Young men need to know the story of the initiation because it's true in all of our lives. We all need to be initiated as men, right? We need to leave behind the ways of the boy and embrace the way of the man, because that is literally what Christ calls us to do in our everyday lives. We are to lay down our lives, then to pick up our cross and follow him. And that is the way of the masculine. All right. That's it for this one. Let me know if you have any thoughts down in the comments below. And until next time, take care and God bless.